This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Everywhere you turn, it's the same old sports talk, the same headlines, the same news, and the same boring information. This podcast is here to change all of that. We bring you hot sports takes, winning sports betting strategy and picks, reliable gaming industry news, and breaking interviews with some of the biggest names in sports business. My name is Ryan Knuppel, and welcome to the Noop Sports Show. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Noop Sports Show. I'm your host, Ryan Knuppel, here with you each and every time. Today, I'm joined by a returning guest. We have a returning guest back on the Noop Sports Show. We have Scott San Emeterio, CEO, founder of BallStreet Trading. Scott, thank you so much for being here, as always.
My man, great to be back. Always great to catch up.
Man, you're one of my favorite people in the industry. We go back over a year now. We've hung out a few times, and I just super appreciate the time you give. And I know we chat quite a bit about what's going on, but thank you once again for just taking a little bit of time out of your busy day.
No, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having me on, being supportive. You probably know better than anyone. This is not the easiest industry to fight through, especially this past year. But it's great to certainly watch your show and listen to some of the guests you have on. And it's just been a great experience this past year or two.
I appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about the past year. So, well, first of all, give the audience. So maybe there's people that are listening that didn't hear the first show. Just give us a little bit of background about yourself, and then how BallStreet came about, and then what BallStreet is, just at a very high level.
Yeah, my background is in finance. I spent a long time in fixed income trading bonds, and was never really a big sports bettor, but played a lot of online poker back during the boom and tried to really think about a way that I could get control of the action that I wanted to have during a live game. None of that really existed, certainly not in the US. And, what BallStreet is a real-time prediction market that lets fans compete against each other during any live event. It's basically the best of sports betting meets the stock market with a little bit of online poker sprinkled in.
Very cool. Very cool. And what's new right now? I mean, I know you guys probably had quite a bit of momentum going with BallStreet coming into the COVID pandemic. And, now we've all kind of lost a little momentum in whatever we were doing. But I'm curious for you guys, how you reacted as a company to this current situation that we've been in.
We were all set to make a big push into the NCAA tournament this year. We had set up our PR teams. We were going to actually do some real marketing going into that tournament. We wanted to really grow out the user base through the NBA playoffs, and then really take us into the summer and figure out what the second half was going to look like with college football and the NFL. COVID hits. I still remember that day when the NBA gets canceled. Tom Hanks is sick, and it's just, you feel like everything is collapsing on top of you. So we quickly thought about where the best direction was going to be for us. We were all pretty much in agreement that this was going to be a pretty big deal. So we basically put conventional sports on the shelf, and we went full force into esports for a good 3 to 4 months. We did all of the diligence and discovery to understand the landscape and figure out who the players were, and really try to figure out what our place in it could potentially be. We went out, we spoke to a lot of teams, we spoke to a lot of publishers, we spoke to a lot of talent agencies, just to really understand exactly how that space works and how the gaming side of things leads itself to potential opportunities, because the regulation in esports is maybe even more difficult than some for the conventional betting. Through those conversations, we've met a lot of really great and smart people. We have a couple of announcements that will be coming later this summer, one of which is a really big one for us, that we'll be able to turn on our business model, where we're going to have full-on sponsors coming into the contest, creating interesting prizes, and creating markets for esports, everything from Mario Kart to NBA 2K to Rocket League to CSGO. So if there's ability for us to have a measurable outcome, we're going to try to put a market for it.
So, yeah, we all know esports is not going away. It's going to be exploding over the next decade, and it's definitely a force to be reckoned with. Just explain to the audience a little bit more about what you mean about creating markets for esports. How BallStreet and esports, how does one of those contests work at maybe a little more granular level?
Yeah, sure. So when you think about it in a conventional sports sense, you think about Monday Night Football, there are two teams that are going to play. We're going to have a market run based on win probability. So our markets will run from 0 to 100. Shares of the winning team will expire at 100. Shares of the losing team will expire at 0. So for us to create markets, we just really need a measurable outcome. So whether that's a presidential election, whether that's a question of where will Kevin Durant sign. We had that market last summer. We had a market where which league will be back first, the NBA or Major League Baseball. And we think about esports, we're just really looking about how these teams, when you think about the big tournaments, or even some of these streamers who are just doing it with their buddies and somehow managed to pull in 25 to 50,000 streamers, which is still blows my mind every time I see it. But we're just there trying to say, Team Liquid versus 100 Thieves, which team is going to win map one in the CSGO game? And we'll basically have the market in real time, and people can buy and sell shares of those teams as they're watching those players, compete. Even if it's something like Mario Kart, it's like, will the princess win or is, Luigi going to win? We can create a market, and you're basically going to watch them go around the track, and you're going to buy shares based on the likelihood they're going to win. There's really no difference to Mario Kart than NASCAR on some level, right? So for us, it's just trying to create as many different verticals or as many different products that we think will get people interested. And obviously, hopefully they have a good experience to get to come back, because you're not really getting this type of experience with conventional betting or certainly fantasy. So we think we have a unique product in that this is something that goes in parallel to complement and enhance the experience of watching these streams.
Sure. The fan engagement and being involved in all of this stuff, it kind of goes, it's clear to how it works in sports, but how it's going to work in esports and how that's going to go. It all blows my mind a little bit. So explain a little bit about your, are these free to play games? They're not actually buying shares with, explain how that works. They buy into a contest and they're getting prizes and things of that nature, but explain how that works a little bit.
So I mean, early on, we realized that being a startup and trying to do real money gaming in the US is next to an impossible task. So we have gone the free to play route. We looked at what we do well, and that's basically engage players for the duration of the game. So with the amount of average app open time that we're seeing, because players are engaged in the markets, we thought this would be a good path to take and invite brands to leverage that engagement to tell their story intra-game. So our contests are completely free to play. We're creating prize pools in the back end to create some incentive. The goal is to bring in sponsors that will really increase that incentive to where potentially you have a free to play game where you can win anywhere from 5, 10, even $20. So when you think about how much you're actually risking playing fantasy or playing or making an actual bet, why, when you can come to BallStreet and win 10, $20 for free, would you ever go risk your own money? That's really the angle we're trying to play and leverage our ability to tell those stories and introduce those sponsors to the gaming community in a unique way where we actually get to monetize fan engagement and give that money back to the fans.
That's very interesting. That sounds amazing. All right, I'm going to show my financial noviceness with this next question, but I want to hear a little bit of the strategy around this and what your thoughts are. I'm sure everybody has their own strategy when playing your games, when buying and selling. But I'm of the nature, when I come in, I'm like, I'm going all or nothing. I'm buying like all stock here, and if it goes well, don't I do well? And if not, I don't. Explain the strategy and how that could or wouldn't work. And am I thinking of that just totally wrong, and I should be buying and selling at different points? Give us a little strategy. Give me some tips. I need help.
Right? So if you think about the game at its core, it's really just a pick'em game, right? We're asking you to pick not even so much who's going to win the game. We're almost asking you to pick who's going to perform the best over the next 5 or 10 minutes. Because as that team performs well, more people are going to want to buy those shares. Because at the end of the game, the team with the winning shares, they're going to expire at 100. And that's the true goal, is to try to collect as many 100 valued shares as you can. But the reality is, if you come in at the beginning of the game and you say, you know what, the Yankees are going to win tonight, I just know it, but the score is 0-0, and you buy the Yankees might win the game. It doesn't mean you're going to win BallStreet, because what if the Yankees fall down 5-0 in the third? That means the Yankees were trading at, let's say, 50 at the beginning of the game. Now they're down 5-0. Now they're trading at 30. So someone else has the opportunity to come in and buy shares at 30, which is going to gain much more P&L than your shares at 50, even if the Yankees go to win, because your shares, you're going to make $50 on each. They're going to make 70. So you are going to be behind them in the leaderboard. So one of the big strategies is, which is kind of interesting, in that every time shares make a new low in the market is probably a buying opportunity, because you now have the opportunity to buy the cheapest shares in the markets, which gives you the opportunity to make the most money off those shares. Another thing is that if you're paying attention to the market with the game, you'll be able to understand where you are in relation to other players. So if you're not inside the top 20% or whatever percentage we're paying that particular night, your move is now to go buy the underdog team, because you can't buy the team that's already winning. you're never going to make up enough to beat everyone who's already ahead of you. So your opportunity there is to now buy the shares of the team that is behind, hoping that they get to make a comeback. And they don't even have to come back and win the game. If it's an NBA game and they're down 15 points and the game is trading 70-30, even if that team comes back to tie the game, those shares probably go from 30 to 50. And you just made a monster return because you now get to make $20 per share and you only put in 30 on each. And this is where some of the math, some of the ROI, some of the game theory stuff begins to play itself out. And that's why I always say that there's a lot of poker that gets sprinkled into this, to think about the different layers of strategy into why you're picking a team, why you're buying a team. And, at the end of the day, the decision to buy or sell a team shouldn't be based on who's going to win or lose the game until you're probably in the fourth quarter.
Interesting. And that's what I love about it. There's so many layers and levels of complexity. You're really drawing on a bunch of crowds. You got your sports fans that are really wanting to get engaged, but like you said, there's a little bit of poker in it on what are the others doing? When do I want to buy? When do I want to sell? And then there's for sure the financial aspect, which obviously is your background. And so the trading piece of it, I think, draws in a whole nother crowd of people that can now put that with sports. And I just commend you. I think it's a great idea and a super product that you guys have put out there.
Thank you. It's always funny because I go back and I look at all of the tape at the end of the markets, and you have players, some of them make 10, 15, 20 trades and they're successful. You have other guys who make 100 trades. Some of them are successful, some of them aren't successful. It's do you catch the moment at the right time? Are you staying ahead of everyone else? It's like one of those things where if you think about an NFL game, to where if the Patriots have the ball on the 20 and they're trading at 50, they make a first down, maybe it goes up to 55. Then they cross the 50-yard line. Now they're trading at 60. They get into the red zone. Now they're trading at 65. They go into the end zone. The market might move up to 70, but then everything's going to sell off because you have the guys who bought them back at the 20-yard line selling into the strength that is everyone who's late money buying those shares as they cross the end zone. And people who then have bought shares at 68 don't understand why the market's now trading at 61 after they scored a touchdown. Sure. Because everyone is playing the crowd. They're not even trading the game. They're trading the market, and they're competing against everyone else.
Right. Amazing. So let's go a little off topic here. I won't keep you too much longer, but I got a question that's more business running, business operations, entrepreneurship facing. So, we all know entrepreneurship is not all it's cracked up to be. Sometimes it's very difficult. There's challenges that come about as you're starting any kind of product, business, service, whatever you're doing. I'm curious what some of the biggest challenges you faced starting BallStreet, because it's been only, a couple years now. I'm sure you've had many challenges throughout the couple years. And COVID aside, let's put COVID aside. Yep. I mean, that was a challenge for everyone. I'm talking more just business in general. What are some of the challenges you faced of just being an entrepreneur and running a business?
I think time, and that you have this set timeline on when things are supposed to happen. And I think the reality is, at least my experience, at best, if you think something's going to take a month, it's probably going to take 2. And I think mentally you have to get over that fact, because otherwise that will just eat you up and beat you down, to where you set these timelines and you set these goals and these milestones that are, I don't even know if they're achievable, but it takes a village, in that we have a team of 5 at BallStreet. So we need all of us to pull together to be able to reach the milestones that we've set out for ourselves. And, we sit and we put these dates on the calendar, and the calendar has its own ideas on when these things are going to get done. So I think coming from a corporate, background where everything is much more structured, and you have the full support of thousands of people potentially working on whatever the projects are there, that you can stay to a cadence. And with I think, at least my experience in the entrepreneur side of things, is that everything's the Wild West, and time is what you make of it, but you can't hold yourself to it, because otherwise, like I said, you're going to drive yourself crazy, because it's next to impossible. And I give everyone credit who has attempted to, continues to attempt, and even who has gotten to some of those heights. It is much harder than I ever thought it was going to be, but I certainly love every second of it.
Yeah, that's some great advice. You can't get too down when you don't hit a milestone or a timeline changes. I mean, that's something that's going to happen day in and day out. So I think that's great advice for aspiring entrepreneurs or people in this space, that are looking to start up things. Don't get too caught up, because things are going to change in this, especially in this industry as well. With the gaming space so new in the US and all of this, I think it even adds to that complexity and timings changing.
For sure. And in the gaming space, you have the regulatory issues. You have now, I guess, potentially financial issues with everything that's going on around with COVID. Depending on what you're trying to build, you have a pretty defensive incumbency group in that the operators or people who have been in the industry for a really long time, they're not necessarily so happy to see some of the new stuff come in. And, you look around over the past even month or two, and in the startup space, you see some of the companies that are getting funded, and they're holding true to a model of what clearly works in the DFS space. A lot of the pick'ems, a lot of the props type stuff. And for us, our time will come. It's just a question of when are people going to think about some of the alternative ways that people get to experience sports, and people get to consume a gaming type of product that isn't conventional, or at least hasn't been conventional in the US for as long as we've been around. So for us, it's about really trying to continue to do what we've been doing well, and eventually our time will come and put ourselves in a position to be successful.
Yeah, I love that mentality, that just keep grinding away, and not all businesses reach their pinnacle right away. I mean, it just takes time and effort and grinding and just getting after it, and putting that really sweat equity in, right? And believing that the product and the service that you have is truly above others, and that you'll just need the right eyes on it, right? You need the right partnerships, the right things to happen. So
yeah, it's one of those things, right? It takes one, and that's been our mantras. We say all the time that once the dam breaks, this thing's gonna get pretty wild pretty fast. So just keep hammering away.
Well, I'd encourage any of you listeners or watchers of this show, reach out to Scott. He's one of the great guys in this industry. I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the years. And so, Scott, tell anyone listening how they can get a hold of you, how they can play BallStreet, what you need from them.
Yeah, I mean, we would love to have everyone come and experience the app and let us know your thoughts, good, bad, or otherwise. We're always trying to improve the experience on the app. We know it's something that is a little bit outside the box, but I think every day that we're out there creating markets, we come a little bit closer to inside the box with a lot of the surge in retail trading and people maybe understanding the stock market a little bit more over the past 6 months than they did before. BallStreetTrading.com is the website. We are available on the App Store. We're available in Google Play. We're available through a web app on your mobile. We have a desktop version. On Twitter at BallStreet app is where probably do our most activity, and on LinkedIn, Scott San Emeterio. Feel free to reach out. Happy to help in any way I can with anyone who has ideas, thoughts, or if they even want to consider jumping on and helping us, because we're certainly looking to expand the team over the next couple of months.
Perfect. Well, Scott, I appreciate you being here. Any upcoming poker tournaments? I know you guys were running a few poker tournaments kind of on the side as well. Anything?
Yeah, I mean, look, anything to keep our name top of mind.
I love it.
When your brother's been playing Wednesday.
I know he has. He's been there. I know he keeps poking me like, hey, are you going to get on? I'm like, crap, not tonight, but I need to.
We've been averaging almost 250 people on Wednesday nights.
Amazing.
Yeah, so anyone who wants to play Wednesday nights on PokerStars, it's a completely rake-free game. So come in, play. It's a great group. It has a home game feel, but when you're pulling in a couple hundred people, those prize pools get pretty interesting. It's a lot of fun.
Never know. Maybe all in, make it happen. So, all right, Scott. Well, I appreciate your time. Any last words for the audience here before we take off?
No, thank you, Ryan. You do a great job, and I really do enjoy the podcasts when I get to see them pop up on my Spotify, and look forward to catching up hopefully in December when SBC gets a chance to come back to New York, and if not, sometime next year, we got to figure out a way to cross paths.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I can't wait for live events to come back and sit down and talk business and life and everything like that. So, all right, everybody, I appreciate you all tuning in, watching, taking care. This was Scott San Emeterio with BallStreet Trading. Scott, once again, thank you. Everyone listening, thank you, and everybody stay safe out there. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Noob Sports Show. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing to our iTunes channel today. Plus, visit us at noobsports.com for more picks, previews, strategy, and news. That's knupsports.com.